Well, this one's coming on well, isn't it? All the floors are done. So we've got the front floor plans done, rear floor plans, and then all the boot floors done. So that's a big leap forwards, isn't it? There's more to do, so shall we have a look at that next? On these 4-litre cars, the floors are normally made of fiberglass. Now they'd be sort of formed off the car, sort of productionised, and then they lay them into the chassis, as it were, so they sort of go down into it, and then they fiberglass them in. Anyway, they give problems, they split, they break, and so on. So it's common practice and best practice to replace them with steel. Now, I think the Spiders had steel floor pans, but I might be wrong on that one. We'll have to look into that, find out if we can find out, you know, see if we can find out more about that. But certainly on the 3.7 cars, the rear floor pans were steel on those, and the front floor pans on some of them were a sort of composite aluminium thing with some sound deadening, heat resistant stuff, probably asbestos based, probably nasty stuff like that. But anyway, so that's what we do, make steel floor pans, and I've done that on the other 4-litre I restored, and I'll do it on my 3.7 as well. So these have come out well, so that's a you know, that's a big step forwards, getting them done. They need to be welded in yet, but I'm going to leave that just for a bit because I'm still sorting out, getting the centre line sorted out and things like that. So I won't weld them in just yet. That'll come in, you know, soon, very soon. But next was looking at the boot floor. So this boot floor, that's been replaced in its entirety. So I had to do all of that. Now, if you remember early on, the first job I did on this, when we first film we made, was putting this back straight, wasn't it? Where this has all been pushed in when I made the jig. You know, I made all these brackets up for the jig, didn't I? And that one was out, which I knew it would be, and then we pulled it out. So you can look at that video if you want. It's about an hour long, because we sort of shot it live. We, you know, I hadn't sort of preempted it, other than I'd set the jig up to that point, and then we said, right, okay, let's see how we get on. So we did, pulled it straight. And of course then I was thinking, oh, there'll be some repairs in here, but I didn't think we was going to have to replace the whole thing. So I said chassis rails, spare wheel tub, all the boot floor, this tool tray area, everything. Then all the perimeters are all being done. And then that's moving through into sorting out the bumper irons or the bumper mounts, which is what these are. And this jig I've made, this bit of tooling to make sure they're all in line. And then I've got to sort out the centre. So at the moment I'm just trying to get the centre sorted. And then we've got issues with this tailgate. Now I've got another tailgate which we might use, but this one's been extensively repaired and quite nasty repairs. So if we have a look up in here, we'll see there's sort of nasty bits of sort of pop riveted in stuff. So all this sort of area has been been let in, and there's quite a few nasty welding bits, and there's stuff where it's split on the outside. So we've got sort of splits in here. You know, this is all quite nasty. This is all lead work that's been done on it. But you can see here this doesn't sort of line up. So this all corresponds with the side of the car that's hit. But then of course this pop riveted stuff, I'm assuming, is sort of rust repairs. Anyway, I've got another tailgate, but it doesn't fit this aperture very well. But then if we're thinking about it, I've got to make this bit of the aperture and that bit straight from there to there, which I can reuse. And of course these can be moved over, can't they? So I'm thinking, you know, we can make the tailgate fit this, I would have thought. But we've got to have a look into it. I've got to have a proper look at it. The way these are, you see this sort of ends in a raw edge here. So I think that they, you know, file these up to suit the aperture they want. You know, so they're all sort of going to be slightly different depending on the, you know, how well the body's gone. And there's definitely a difference between a 4-litre rear end and the 3.7. It has a sort of sculpted in bit where the bumper goes on the 4 litre, and it sort of goes into a recess. But on the 3.7, it's sort of an opposite. It doesn't work like that. So, you know, there'll be subtle differences in how they finish. And I've recently been told, I have it on good authority, because it was Adolfo Rossi himself told me, that some of these cars were built at the Touring. So a handful of Mistrals went through Touring to be built. Now, as we know, they're designed by Fua, but the rest of them were constructed up in Turin by Maggiore, who latterly, well, actually at the same time, they were working on 2300S Coupe, lovely car they are. They were the gear design. And the last things they were building was that pretty little Fiat Barchetta, you know, the front-wheel drive Fiat Punto-based Barchetta, wonderful, you know, very stylish little car. And the Lancia Kappa Coupe, they did those. And I'm sure they had some involvement with the Integral, Lancia Delta Integral, but I'm not entirely sure to what end, if it was, you know, just coach building the Agnelli convertible, or if they actually were involved in the production of the normal bodies. I you know, yet to find out more about that. So, next bit, sort this out, isn't it? Got to get all this sorted out. Now, have you been watching the dailies? Well, that's just, you know, quick updates on what's going on. But they're, you know, every time I get a chance, I'll make one. So watch them if you like them. And then we'll try and continue with this sort of, you know, longer form videos at the weekends on a Sunday, 10 o'clock. Okay. Well, I'm going to pack up and go home, so I'll say good night. So that's where it's got to go, in there, or rather in there, because that's the one I'm replacing, isn't it? I'm using a whole new boot floor. I'm going to put a new boot floor in, that joins through there, and so on. And then I've got to make all these bits up. Well, that returns that one, isn't it? But I've made one of these. Anyway, we'll have a look at that. There we are. Lola and Caracas are in the news, aren't they? And as we know, This was extracted from Venezuela, from Caracas. Who knows? Who knows what's going on with the world? Let's hope for peace, saying a bit of goodwill to all men. Well, you can hope, can't you? I'm going home because it's cold. You can see my breath.